Many times you listen to people who have credentials. This guy is a professor. This guy is from the academy. This guy, I don't know, was a general in the army, so they must know what's going on. Allow me to be skeptical. I have seen some of the nonsensical things and the stupidest things and the most far-off assessments. For example, what all Israelis heard until October 6th was Hamas Murta, Hamas is deterred, meaning they had this conception that Hamas will not attack because we just give them, I don't know, different goods or money, and they have what to lose, so they wouldn't want to risk it. The whole conception was, oh, we're going to give them goods, material goods, and then therefore they're not going to attack us. There is a very famous Israeli reporter and public figure now, I'll probably call him, Eliyahu Yossian. He said it's like two different languages. Like, he goes to a reporter and he says, you were talking to me, you live in Tel Aviv and you eat sushi, and you don't understand that in the Middle East, people like wipe hummus with their pita. Like, you're coming from a whole different mindset. I mean, it's enough to see how girls dress in Paris or how girls dress in Afghanistan that you can tell that people here have different mindsets, a Western mentality and a Eastern or Arab mentality, and they don't value the same things. I can come and tell you, oh, if you listen to me, I'll bribe you with buying you, a new book, and you don't like reading books. That would not be a prize for you. Or I can say, I'll deter you by giving you a $20 fine. I mean, you might be a billionaire and you might not care about a $20 fine. It's a different language here in the mentality in the Middle East. And that's what many of the people, even if they have amazing credentials and they were professors in the academy, they might get things way off. And if you want proof, I don't think we need any further proof after what happened in Israel on the 7th of October. So I don't have many credentials. I have a master's in Middle East, and أنا فاهم اللغة العربية يعني من الجامعة. I can speak Arabic and read Arabic, but I'm not going to say my credentials. I'll say that in my job in the past 16 years, I can articulate things in a good way. And I have thousands and thousands of people that came over to me and said, I studied 4 years of Middle East studies in university, and what I understood in one session with you of like half hour, 45 minutes is more clear to me now than what I learned for 4.5 years in college. And this includes Ivy League schools. So forget my credentials. I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about a different theory I have. And if you agree with me, and I'm just going to try to talk common sense, if you agree with me, I beg you, do something about it, be active about it. And I will already say now, it's important for me to record this chapter in English, because I feel that you in America and you in Europe are not less important, not as important, but more important for Israel right now than the soldiers in the IDF. Again, let me say that again. You're not as important. You're an 18-year-old kid. You're a 26-year-old alumni of some random gap year program. You are more important. More. Not as important, more important for Israel's success, for this campaign to be a successful one. You are more important than a random soldier in the IDF. I appreciate that soldier. He is putting his life on the line. He might risk his life. He might leave a widow and orphans behind. But who's really going to determine whether this will be a successful campaign or not? That's not him. That's you, living in New Jersey and living in Austria and being able to make this a successful campaign. And I will get to this, and this will take probably 40 minutes, and I will try to articulate. I'm sorry about the speed that I'm talking. I hope this is going to be clear, and here we go, okay? Many times people on CNN or on BBC or on any other media outlet come and talk about peaceful Muslims and peaceful Arabs. I have news for you. 99.9% of Arabs, 99.9% of Palestinians living in Israel are peaceful people. I had surgery a few years ago. My physiotherapist was a Muslim guy called Khaled. The guy who repairs my car in the shop, his name is Abdallah. I buy building materials for my house by a guy called Ismail, who has a shop like 5 minutes from my house. The lawyer, the guy who I fill in papers for Social Security and income tax in Israel, he might be an Arab Israeli. We are intertwined. Not one hospital in Israel can work, and not one factory and not one shop can work without Jews and Arabs. Like, we are intertwined 100%, 99.9, 100%. Not one business, maybe there's one in Israel, there's always going to be an exception. There's 99.9% of businesses and hospitals and bus companies in Israel cannot function without Jews or Arabs. We are fully intertwined. And 99% of the time of them, I will get on the bus and the driver will be an Arab and will drive in my house and I will get off. What causes an Arab guy who was peaceful? He might have been an ambulance driver and like saving Jews his whole life. Why one day could he maybe pick up, a gun or pull the wheel and run over a group of Israelis? Let me explain why, and I'm not trying to explain I can help it. I'm trying to articulate in words why this is the case. Why was the guy who did 9/11 totally okay until the moment he crashed an airplane into the Twin Towers? I was in a terror attack a few years ago. I got injured. The terrorists used a truck. I was guiding a group of soldiers about to start, and a truck driver called Fadil Kunbar from Jabal Mukabar, a neighborhood in East Jerusalem, suddenly drove by. He saw us. He pulled the wheel, and he ran over, injuring me and killing another 4 people, injuring another 13, including me. He was using a truck. That guy was totally okay. He had the opportunity to do this, to kill Jews 50 trillion times in his life, and he chose not to. That one day, when he passed by at 1:15 a.m. on the 17th of on January 8th, 2017, he pulled his wheel and he ran into us. Why? Let me explain why. Let me try to articulate in words. And again, I can't solve it. I can try to explain and analyze a situation and build a building based on these levels. So why did he do that? We and the Palestinians, Israelis or the Jews and the Palestinians and or Arabs, we are individually intertwined and we love each other. An Arab guy would prefer working in an Israeli company, which pays him 3 times more salary than he would wants to work in a Palestinian business, which pays him 1/4. They love us and we love them. I would rather, fix my car by a car repair shop, which costs me 1/4 than a Jewish car repair shop, a Palestinian one, rather than a Jewish one that charges me 3 times more money, meaning I love them, they love me. And this is all on the individual level. I got news for you. Every single one of us, human beings, have a lot of different things that form their personality, and we have a lot of different behaviors, and we have, I don't know if I can put it as 2 major ones. One is an individual, and one is the way you are when you are part of a collective. I will give you an example for each one of us we can relate to. A 7-year-old, a 7th grader kid could be a sweetheart, could be the loveliest person in the world. But when he's with a bunch of his friends, he will do stupid things. He can throw a chair at a teacher. If that kid was sitting alone with the teacher, he would never throw a chair at a teacher. But reality is that sometimes kids do stupid things. An 18-year-old kid probably does not do drugs when he's alone or reckless driving when he's alone. I don't know, reckless driving is a bad example. But jump off a cliff jump into a shallow pool in the Golan Heights in Israel. He won't do that when he's alone. He will do that, even though it's reckless and stupid and dangerous behavior. He will do that when he's with a few more people, with a bunch of his friends, telling him, oh, you'll be a chicken. Meaning we are different. If you're a white, kid or girl and you're walking in the slummiest neighborhood in Detroit or Harlem or Chicago and you see a scary punk-looking, scary guy, dude, sketchy, sitting on the bench smoking a cigarette, if he's alone, chances are nothing's going to happen to you. But if you see him sitting there on the bench with 9 of his buddies, I got news for you. Walk away. Because when he's with 9 of those buddies, he might be doing something stupid that he's not going to do alone. If I walk in through a crowd of Arabs, it's different than when I walk along the street and one Arab walks across me. When I walk without one Arab across me, nothing's going to happen. I know it. When I walk through a crowd of 30 Arabs, that's already different. That's already, my whole body tenses up. We all feel that. Why? Because we and the Arabs, these Jews and the Arabs, we all feel a collective sense. If you would like me to give you a parable, we are a lot more beehive mentality than we are an individual mentality. Meaning, we care about the hive. We don't care about the individual bee. I'll give you an example. When you have a bee attacking you, trying to eat your yogurt, you go like this. The bee flies away. But that same bee who doesn't want to die and you shoo him away and he flies away, that same bee, if you kick the hive, he will gladly be happy. Gladly to go and sting you and get killed in the process with 50,000 of his friends. Why? Because he cares about the hive more than he values the individual. We and the Palestinians, we are in a individually, we love each other, and collectively, we are conflicted. It does not matter if it is because of nationality or because territory or because of religious issues. It does not matter. We are individually, we love each other, but collectively, we are conflicted. The Palestinians see us as not okay, whether it be a Muslim reason or whether it be because we stole their land in 1948 and they are conflicted with us since then. It doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact is, we do. By the way, we the Jews, we feel the same way. We look at as, I don't know, Jews on military cemeteries. We don't look at them and say, haha, you're a bunch of idiots who died for nothing. We go there and we appreciate them. We say thank you. Memorial Day in America is not a day of barbecues. Memorial Day in Israel is a day that people go and they show appreciation. And they tell random people, we appreciate you. Why? Because you gave your life so that we can live a normal life and go to the mall and go to the beach and take my kids to kindergarten. We look at ourselves as a beehive, and so do they. So we will always have that. Now, I want to say one thing before anything. This video is not for people who, I don't know, support Hamas or support the Palestinians. I don't think I'm going to persuade anybody here, and I'm not going to go into fun facts about why this is a conflict about Israel's actual existence and not about this or that territory like Free Palestine. It doesn't help. They don't want Israel to exist. I'm not going to convince anybody, so this video is not for you. If you think that this conflict between Jews and Arabs is something that might be resolved one day, you can stop listening right now because there's not really a point. What I can come and try to explain is that most problems in life do not have a simple way of resolving them. You can minimize your problems. Let's be adults. Let's look and say, okay, there are problems. For example, there's a problem in the world that's called crime. I'm not going to abolish crime. Anybody who promises you I'm going to abolish crime, 100%, he is living in La La Land. He's living in a fantasy, not in reality. There is also a thing called poverty. Anybody who promises I'm going to get rid of poverty, 100%, we know how those different theories of how to abolish poverty led humanity, not in good directions. There is always going to be crime. There's always going to be some guy who's going to rob a bank instead of like working hard and gaining money for a car, saving up money for a car. I'm always going to have people that are going to, spend money on drugs instead of on their kids. I'm always going to have that. It's not like I can abolish 100. I'm not going to fire. So if you would come to me and you would tell me, oh, you can't abolish it 100%. That's a zero-sum game. So can you suggest anything? No. If you're looking for a 100% solution for a problem, you are not going to get anywhere in life. What you want to do is you want to shrink problems to levels you can live with. You're not going to fire all policemen because you don't have a solution for crime 100%. You're going to say, okay, I will always have crime. How can I bring crime down to a level that I can live with? I want to go jogging in the park without being mugged. I want the rich people or healthy people in society and who have money and work jobs pay enough money so that, you know what, they can give a support for a father, a child of a person who his father chose to buy drugs rather than buy him food. Meaning I have problems. I want to minimize the problems to a level that I can live with. In Israel, I have terror. You know what? I have that happening in Germany and in London once in a while. A Muslim or Arab guy decides to do an act of terrorism. I have that happening in London too, and in Malmo also. I don't want to abolish it 100%. I want to bring it down to a level I can live with. Instead of terrorism, an act of terror taking place once every 2 days, I want it to happen once every 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years. That is something realistic that I can minimize, and you know what? I can live with. So you want to lower your problems. So let's go stage by stage, explain what is terrorism, how can we affect it, how can we lower the numbers, and later I will give you the diagnosis of Israel's number one problem, which is why are we not using our force, which we have? I mean, we have an air force. Hamas doesn't even have one tank. If Israel wants to abolish Gaza and actually make a genocide in Gaza, it would take 3 batteries of artillery, 12 trucks of shells, and 1 day. I mean, maybe not 1 day, maybe 6 or 7 hours, and there won't be a living soul, not an ant, not a lizard, nonetheless a human being live in Gaza. We are not doing it. So if I have so much, if this is like a infant Mike Tyson clash, and we are so much stronger, why are we not using our force? So let me go stage by stage. What is terrorism? Terrorism is a tactic. When I hear different, reporters on different media outlets saying the war on terrorism, that makes me laugh so bad. I mean, terrorism is a tactic. It could be used by a drug cartel in Colombia. It could be used by Italian mafia. It's, I will scare you. I cannot deal with you. head on head, face off, like one on one. I can't do it. You are way stronger than me, and I realize that. So I'm going to use a different tactic called terror. Like saying the war on terror is like saying that Britain in World War II fought tanks, bombs, and airplanes. No, they fought Nazi Germany. The tactic they chose is tanks, bombs, and airplanes. Arabs in the Middle East chose a tactic of tanks, bombs, and airplanes to abolish the Jews and actually make a genocide against Jews, both in 1948 and 1967, and you know what? Also in 1973. They tried using tanks, bombs, and airplanes, and they failed time after time after time. So they went to a different tactic. In Arabic, it's called mukawama, resistance. I cannot abolish you. I cannot just come in, drop an atom bomb or drop regular bombs and demolish you all, kill you all. So I will make your staying here very costly. Mukawama, I will resist in whatever I can. That's, by the way, why they use rockets. Thousands of rockets, 20,000 rockets flew to Israel in the past 20 years. They've killed very few number of people. I'm rounding things up, but about 20 or 30 people were injured, and another 30 were killed altogether. So the rockets are very not. I mean, if you think 20,000 rockets and only 50 people were hit, that's a very small percent. But the cause is not to kill people. If it was to kill people, then they wouldn't use rockets. They'd use tunnels or some other tactic. The rockets are very good and successful at disrupting life. One rocket lands, you can't go to university that day. You're worried about your dog and your family. Is your car okay? Like, what does your birthday look like in kindergarten if a rocket fell and you heard a boom like 5 blocks away? You can actually enjoy your cake and celebrate a birthday now? It's really bad at killing people. It's really good at disrupting lives. And that's why they put so much effort. They're not trying to kill you. They're trying to disrupt your life. So terror is there to scare you. It's a tactic that's used by Palestinians and by Hamas and by ISIS, for example, not to come and eradicate you and actually uproot you and kill you all. It's there to kill. It's there to make you scared and fear. It's enough that one guy beheads his teacher in Paris to make everybody else afraid. And percentages, out of 8 million Muslims live in Paris, only one guy did that. That's 0.00003%. But it doesn't matter. All the 60 million other people are afraid because of that one case where it happened. And again, you don't know where it's going to happen. You become neurotic. If you don't know where it's going to hit you, you don't know if that doctor is treating you in the hospital, who's an Arab guy, he's going to be okay, the way he's been 10,000 times before, or if tomorrow he's going to decide to be, okay, I'm going to give you actually overdose, and I'm going to make you sick or handicapped, or I don't know what, and just say it was a mistake. Meaning you don't know, and that makes you neurotic. If I'm being shot from there, I go behind a wall and I'm okay. But if a mortar shell is about to fall and I don't know where it's going to fall, it might fall there, behind whatever wall I go. I don't know where it's going to land. I become neurotic. I don't know where it's going to be coming from. So terrorism is a tactic. Now, there are two things. We call them in Hebrew levanot, two things in intelligence that I can come and I can see that terrorism could be, it needs two pillars. Without that, it doesn't happen. Without both pillars, the two pillars are motivation and ability. Ability, let me explain. If you have a terrorist and he wants to blow up an airplane, but you go through so many screening machines, he can't take a bomb onto that airplane, then guess what? He's not going to blow up an airplane. Meaning, even if he's highly motivated to blow up an airplane, he's not going to do it because he physically cannot. And if I have, so if you take away the ability, you arrest a bad guy before he does something bad, you confiscate a gun from a Hamas guy before he uses his gun, you do screening machines before airplanes. We put all of our effort into stopping the ability, but ability will always be there. A guy doesn't have to kill you with a knife, with a gun. He can kill you with a knife. What am I going to take away all the knives they cut salad with? A guy can kill you with a truck. I was in a terror attack. The guy used a truck. What am I going to take away? All the car keys and all the truck keys from every single Arab in Israel? It's not going to happen. They'll always have the ability. The second pillar it needs to stand, the terrorism needs to happen, is motivation. Let's say I want to blow up an airplane. There's no screening machines, but I don't want to blow up an airplane. I'm not motivated to do this. So I'm not going to blow up an airplane. Meaning, even if I have the ability, I can take a bomb onto the airplane. I have a gun. I can use it. But if I'm not motivated to sit on the side of the road and, kill random civilians or random people, then even if I have the ability, if I don't have the motivation, it's not going to work. Given they will always have the ability, I'm not going to confiscate every set of car keys, and they will always have the motivation. Given they don't want us here, they are nationally and in a collective conflict with us, and it's not going to be resolved. I'm not going to save it and change it. I'm not going to make them sing Kumbaya tomorrow with the Israelis. So they will always have motivation, and they will always have the ability. So what can I do? And here we go. I can't work on the ability. I can't confiscate every set of car keys. But what I could do is work on the motivation. Working on motivation, influencing motivation, is, in 2 words, game theory. Yes, he really wants to, but I can give him punishment if he does. And if he gets a punishment that hurts him enough, he's not going to do it. I'll give you an example. You're driving on the car. You want to answer your phone. It's a really important business call. You answer. But if you know you're going to be getting a 10,000 shekel fine or $5,000 fine, you're going to say, okay, I really want to pick up the call, but I'm going to wait till the next intersection. I can stop in a bus stop and I can safely pick up the call, because you know that if you're going to answer the phone, you're going to be getting a fine, or you risk of getting a really high fine. If the fine was only $20, you would say, I'll risk $20. But if the risk was $5,000, you probably wouldn't risk it. Meaning, all I need to do is use sticks and carrots, meaning use ways to affect their motivation. They always have motivation to hurt you, but I can give a motivation in a form of a punishment, for example, that is so strong that they're not going to want to do it, even though they could. Even though they're really motivated to, they're going to be more motivated not to, okay? Now, this brings me to a misconception that many people have. Many people believe that you cannot deter. The word is deterrence, by the way, and you'll hear every Israeli politician and official using that word deterrence, harta'ah in Hebrew, over and over and over again. We have Hamas murtah, Hamas deterred, we have to deter Hamas. Yes, Israel's whole safety and security is based on deterrence. We want to deter them from doing bad things. So if a misconception many people have is that you cannot deter people that don't care about anything. Let's say the guy doesn't mind dying. He's a suicide bomber. You cannot deter a suicide bomber. What are you going to tell him? I'm going to take your car away? Dude, he doesn't mind dying. This is a misconception. And let me explain why. Sorry about that. Yes, that guy does not mind dying. And you would think, okay, I can't punish him if he doesn't mind dying, but that's wrong. You could punish him. You just have to find a different thing that he does care about. Let's say he doesn't care about dying. We Westerners, life is so important. Maybe in their mindset, life is not so important. They're going for an afterlife, and that's what's important. If you take a guy, Professor Bernard Lewis, one of the leading Middle East professors in the world, once put it so well. He said, if you take a person who wants to be a suicide bomber and you tell him, if you do this and that, I will kill you, that is not a deterrent. That is an inducement. You have to just start talking their language. Maybe that guy who does not mind dying minds a lot about his family. If you would tell him, I will uproot your family. Let's say you're a Palestinian terrorist in the West Bank. If you do that, I don't care about what happens to you. Either die or go to prison. But I will take your family, I'll blow up your house, and I will take your family and force them, I don't know, out of the West Bank. I'll force them into Gaza, for example. Or I will deport them and your whole clan. Maybe that guy does not mind dying, but he minds his clan being deported. Or, for example, in a good way, for every terror attack, I will, for example, build a new settlement. He doesn't, or uproot 100 olive trees. You have to think about the way that you could deter them. Now, the examples, I'll give you an example. Let's say I say, Gaza, you shoot rockets at Israel. I will close the Temple Mount down for Muslims. I will let Jews up there and I will let tourists up there and Muslims who want to come from London or from Malmo or from New Jersey or Dubai. I will let them on. But Muslims who come from the West Bank or Israel, you're Palestinians, I will not let you on. That way you don't start a clash against the entire Muslim world, but maybe that guy does not mind dying. But if he sees the result of his actions are the Temple Mount is closed, he'll see a bunch of evangelicals on the Temple Mount and a bunch of Jewish guys on the Temple Mount with peot, with sideburns and kippahs and beards and rabbis, and he's not going to see Palestinians. Maybe that hurts him more than dying. Meaning, I can always go down to a kinetic option, okay, blow stuff up, kill people. I can always do that. I have tons of strength, but I'm not doing it, and I don't have to. I can just. There are plenty of ways to come and deter some guy. I can say, I got pictures from your video, from your phone. If you do something, I will make those videos go on public. It doesn't matter if it's you wetting your pants when the Shabak, the Israeli Secret Services, are interrogating you, or it could be, I don't know, something not okay that you did. I don't know, you had an affair with some girl and nobody knows about it. It doesn't matter. That guy would rather die than be embarrassed. That's just what they care about. They don't value life as much as they value honor. So if you find the way to hurt his honor, that hurts him more than hurting his life. Let's say, for example, if you, for every rocket, at 2016, Israel would drop, I don't know, 100 pamphlets of magazines, of adult magazines with pictures of, girls wearing super unmodest clothing or lingerie or something. A 17-year-old guy does not mind, in Gaza, does not mind his son dying. He will gladly send him over with an explosive belt or gun, run at the border. He doesn't mind that. Then he's a shaheed. He's honored. He'll have schools named after his son. But he really does care if he sees if his son, a 16-year-old kid, walking to, I don't know, school and seeing the sidewalks full of pictures of super unmodest girls. That might deter him more. I mean, now for us in Westerners, it sounds stupid. It sounds silly. But for this person, it sounds more. If he sees as a result, he doesn't want to, he doesn't mind his son dying. But he really cares if his son, in a very, very conservative society, sexually very conservative, he does mind if his kid is exposed to this kind of stuff. And this scares him 1,000 times more. So if I can easily do it, if I can drop pamphlets of go to South Gaza, I can drop pamphlets of, stop, I don't know, don't shoot Israel, or pictures of girls in lingerie. So I can easily do it. Why am I not doing it? Now, this is the important part. Now, you have to diagnose a problem in order to understand what the problem actually is. Let's say, I don't know, in the 80s, I'm giving an example. Let's say, I don't know, hematologists used to give people chemotherapy because they thought they had leukemia, and half the patients used to die. Okay, so a doctor gets up there and he says, okay, maybe these people specifically, the leukemia is not helping them. Okay, maybe they have something else, and then he discovers a disease called AIDS. HIV virus. I mean, the symptoms look very similar to leukemia. Doctors thought it was leukemia, for example, but it's the wrong problem. If you misdiagnose a problem, maybe the symptoms are very similar, but you have to analyze what the actual problem is. And that's why doctors have to go through medical school and think a lot and think, what is the actual problem? Because if I give the wrong drug, I might kill the patient, not help him. I might deteriorate the situation. I might make it worse. So if Israel could deter, and Israel could easily deter, why am I not doing that? What's tying my hands? I'll give a little parable. If Hamas is an infant and Israel is as strong as heavyweight champion Mike Tyson, Hamas will keep poking Mike Tyson's eyes and slapping him if he knows that Mike Tyson's hands are tied. Something is tying Israel's hands. Israel can't react freely. If we lived with the Palestinians or Gaza on Mars alone, the Israelis and the Palestinians, I got news for you. They wouldn't shoot any rockets at Israel. You know why? Because they knew we can beat the hell out of them. What is tying us down? Many people think is anti-Semitism. I will tell you in a nutshell why I don't agree with this. It might be an ingredient, but I don't think it's the major ingredient, because there are many, I don't know, there's a lot more anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe than there is in Western Europe. In Croatia and Albania, in, I don't know, Poland and Hungary. In Greece, I have a lot more people that are anti-Semitic. But I don't see Israel showing up. They don't send their equivalent of Anthony Blinken to Israel and send tons of money to the Palestinians, and they're not involved. Israel doesn't show up on page 1 in a newspaper in Poland, and probably maybe if it does on page 6 or 17 in Hungary, the same. Even though they're more anti-Semitic in Germany and in Holland and in Switzerland and France. In London, Israel shows up on the front pages. Israel's a breaking news on the BBC or the Guardian. But why do they care? They're less anti-Semitic. So if anti-Semitism was the reason, I'd see Israel very, very present in the media in Eastern Europe too, and it's much less present over there. Many people say, the reason might be underdogness, like the Palestinians are perceived as the underdog. I got news for you. Every single conflict in the world, and there are dozens and dozens of bleeding conflicts as we speak, in Ukraine and Russia, in, I don't know, China and Taiwan, in Western Sahara and Morocco, in Cyprus with Greece. There's so many. thousands and thousands of people are getting killed every single week in other conflicts, whether it be Afghanistan or in Nigeria or in Darfur. And you don't see that as present. So if it's underdogness, there are so many better underdogs that the Western media can come and focus on. It doesn't have to be the Palestinians. Why the Palestinians? Why choose that one underdog rather than all the rest? So many people think maybe it is because of Arab oil, that if they support Israel, the Arabs won't sell oil, they'll embargo them. Or in the 70s, they said, we're not going to buy weapons off of you, so they care. The financial implications, if they support Israel, will be so bad for the West that they say, okay, we're not gonna, we're not gonna support you because that'll upset Arabs, and we're gonna be hurt from that financially. I got news for you. In the past 15 years, the Arabs became a lot less dominant on that sphere of also buying weaponry and also on selling oil to the West. Today, the biggest producer in the world is the United States. It's no longer the West is no longer as dependent on Arab oil as they were in the 1990s. So if it's not Arab oil and it's not anti-Semitism and it's not underdogness, so what is it? What is the main cause that is tying Israel's hands, that is getting the world so involved? It's not just annoying that we're on BBC and CNN all the time, or the UN is obsessively dealing with Israel. It's not just annoying. It is annoying, but it's not all just. It's inherently the reason why this conflict is staying bleeding. Because if they would not involve and they would not fly in their diplomats to tell Israel, to force Israel to practice restraint or be proportionate, which is, it's pointless. Like you have to be disproportionate in order to deter. If you are proportionate, it does not deter, therefore it does not achieve its goal, therefore it is absolutely pointless. So why, they're the ones, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not in Israel. It's in the Western European sphere and American sphere, and you have to diagnose the problem. So here's the problem, in my opinion. They in the Western world see a clash of civilizations, as Samuel Huntington put it in his book 20-something plus, maybe 30 years ago, the clash of civilizations. They see themselves in a clash of civilizations between the Western world and the Muslim/Arab world. In the past 20, 30 years, many Muslims migrated to the West, and many of them, and in the West, they are dead scared because Israel can affect the Muslim population by them. Let me explain. If Israel reacts in a disproportionate fashion, which they need to, in order to deter Hamas from doing these type of horrific things again, it might outrage Muslims living in London or in Malmo. The potential of violence, or how costly it could be to people in the West, is absolutely overwhelming. They don't have to walk around butchering people with a machete or running people over with a truck. I'll give you two simple, non-violent examples to how costly it could be. I'm throwing rough numbers. Let's say I'm wrong. I'm not checking percent here. Let's say 12 or 13% of London are Muslims, and let's say in Heathrow Airport there are 15,000 people working in the airport in London. Let's say if 13% of the city are Muslims, so 13% of the workers will be Muslims. That's like 1,700 guys or 1,500 guys. I'm not very good at math. Let's say if one out of those 1,500 guys, one is outraged because of Israel's disproportionate reaction in Gaza. If one is outraged and he leaves a burning cigarette on a Dreamliner airplane before he closes it up for the night for the morning flight, and that airplane goes up in flames overnight, that was 400 million euros of damage that he caused for one cigarette. If Israel is irrelevant to the West, why? Because we control the level of violence of their local Muslim populations. If you check empirically, the amount of involvement and or money they funnel into the Palestinians and or amount of times they send their foreign ministers to quiet things down, it's not based on how anti-Semitic they are or how much oil they buy from the Muslim world. It's based on what? On how many Muslims they have living by them. Now, fact, the Muslim world in the past 20 or 30 years has become more religious. It's not that the number of Muslims in Europe is rising so much. We see a lot more Muslims. That's a misconception. In all of Germany in 1990, you had 38 mosques, and the population of Muslims until 2010 went up by 1%, from 3.6 to 4.67%. It went up 1%. But the number of mosques went up from 38 in the entire Germany to like over 2,500 in those same 20 years. So the percent went up by 1%. The number of mosques went up by thousands of percent, meaning they are becoming more religious. You'll see halal restaurants, that's Muslim kosher. You'll see halal restaurants in Western Europe because there is a demand. You'll see more mosques because there is a demand. And if you're an Israeli researcher like Uli Shavit and you walk around these mosques, you find little tiny booklets. And you know what those booklets say? They say, oh, you Muslim friend, you brother, you're here as a spearhead of the Muslim interest in the Western world, meaning you are living in London, you are living in Paris, even though it's not okay by Muslim law to live in a non-Muslim government or a non-Muslim country. You're here because you're in what we call in Hebrew shlichut. You're here on some mission. Your mission is to A, make the place more Muslim, B, to fight for the Muslim interests. And if the Muslim interests are that the Western world doesn't attack them, great, then do it. Be violent, riot, rally for it, lobby with your electorates about it. Do whatever you can. You're here on a mission. You're not here just to be a random truck driver called Ismail driving around the streets of Paris or London. You're here on a mission. Now, many of them see it as a mission. And we are relevant because if we are disproportionate, that can outrage the Muslims living in Europe. That's why, by the way, you will not see BBC or CNN breaking news when 100 guys die in Afghanistan from a car bombing. When it's Muslims blowing up Muslims, nobody's going to be outraged. It's not perceived by the Western Muslims as the West is attacking us. 600,000 guys were killed in Syria in the past decade or a little more. Why? But it's not relevant for the West because it's Muslims killing Muslims or Arabs killing Arabs. It's not perceived as, oh, the Muslim world is attacking us. If they come and we attack in Gaza, it's perceived as, oh, the West is attacking us. That can drive them to be outraged. So Israel is relevant for them, and that's why they care. By the way, they put so much power and money in the Palestinians and the West Bank. I mean, there are like 120 million starving people around Africa, and they get less funding from the Dutch government or from the German government or from the French government rather than like 5 million Palestinians in total, if I round it up, and half of them have Jeeps and cell phones. I mean, well, they all have cell phones. Half of them have Jeeps. They're not starving. But when you see the West Bank and you see, wow, this whole salad of Jews, Arabs, they don't see complexity, which is what you see in the West. They see friction. Like one Jewish or Arab guy can get a heart attack on the wheel and knock into a bus or a van and kill 20 Arabs by accident. The car act that can spark World War III. You are relevant. You have a Walmart full of explosives and like one little detonator that's called Israel, and it's like loose. It's much easier to haul out one little detonator, weighs like a bottle cap. It's easier to take that out than to haul out a whole Walmart full of explosives. We are relevant for them, and that's why they care about us. That's why they funnel in so much money, and that's why they don't care about Palestinians' rights as much as they care that this thing quiets down. For example, if you would make a Palestinian human rights watch organization that would advocate for Israel to stay in the West Bank, they would say, oh, only when Israel is there, then the Palestinians actually have rights. Do you think you would get Western European money? That's like silly. No, they don't care about Palestinians' human rights. They want Israel to get away, to minimize friction, to push away this, we say in Hebrew, this boiling hot potato that's in the fire, this burning. I want to move it away. I don't want it to, I don't want to deal with it right now. Now, we are relevant for them. Now, I'm going to do two things in the few minutes I have left, or three things. One is the proof to you that many in the Israeli administration agree with me. It's not just my theory. Many agree with me. Number two is what is the future? And number three is what can we do about it? What is our role? Why are we relevant and what can we affect? And I will try to do that in hopefully 15 minutes, and that way I will make this chapter just under an hour. I will try hard. I'm trying to compress entire semesters, and every little sentence in this podcast could be elaborated, and I can make it into a whole episode. I maybe will start a podcast one day, but in the meantime, it's important for me that you listen to this and that you're active about it. So let me prove to you that many in Israel agree in the Israeli administrations. Two professors for game theory, two world-known, world-famous professors for game theory, Professor Thomas Schelling, may he rest in peace, and an Israeli professor, Islad, or Robert Uman. They both are Nobel laureates. In 2005, they got a Nobel Prize in game theory. they were both asked on different occasions who caused World War II. And both of their answers were the same answer. Again, they were in separate rooms, separate times, separate dates. They both said not Adolf Hitler, and they were both asked a date, and they didn't say September 1st, 1939. The date that they gave was September 29th, 1938. And the name they gave is not Hitler, it's Neville Chamberlain. Let me explain what happened. Germany was perceived as the aggressor after World War I, and they made a huge army and artillery corps, and you name it, and the whole world was really scared of what? Of a Second World War. So Dessoucy and Delidier and Neville Chamberlain and Mussolini, they all flew in and signed what's called the Munich Accords. They told Hitler, you take this third party, a third country we don't care about, Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland, you conquer that and leave us alone, and that way you will have more space that you want. Take them and leave us alone. Just don't, we won't intervene if you take them. And Neville Chamberlain signed appeasement with Hitler, with the bully on the block. And he said, if you conquer this country, we will not intervene. And he came and he said, I will have peace in our time. And everybody gave him a standing ovation. And they were convinced that they prevented a Second World War. He was genuinely convinced. We all know what the road to hell is paved with. It's paved with good intentions. When everybody gave him a standing ovation, one guy sat there like this. His name was Winston Churchill. Churchill told him, England had Great Britain had the choice to choose between disgrace and a war. We chose disgrace. What we'll get in return is a war. Within 6 days, Hitler conquered Sudetenland of Czechoslovakia, and nobody did anything the way they promised Hitler in the Munich Accords. And guess what happened 11 months later? He went through Sudetenland, right into Poland, down the mountains, right into Poland, and everybody was in shock. At that point, in 1938, when they could have stopped the bully on the block, and they were way stronger than him, they chose to what? They chose to appease the bully on the block. He saw they will do anything they can not to confront me. So at that point, when they could have prevented World War II, they've actually caused World War II. Instead of saving 14 million people's lives, it costed the lives of 65 million people. And that was the Sudetenland, the Munich Accords. Now, how do I know that many people see that Europe is afraid and America is afraid of Israel sparking a third world clash? Very simple, because when Bibi goes to the UN, he says Iran, 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 but he says one sentence there, Israel is not going to be Czechoslovakia of 2012 or 2013, or Israel is not going to be Sudetenland of 2014, or I am today's Winston Churchill. I'm the one telling the Western world, you're trying to appease the bully on the block. The bully on the block used to be Hitler. Now the bully on the block are Muslims or Arabs. If you appease the bully on the block, you're not preventing a war. You're causing one. The World War II, the World War I message that we should have learned from is not, the use of force is bad, which is like what Europe learned. It's not the use of force is bad. It's that it's better to use very little force at a sooner and earlier stage rather than use a lot more force at a later stage. He's trying to tell the world, if you support Israel now, you are going to have to, yes, you're going to have to use a lot of force. Yes, a lot of people, we're going to have a mess. But the mess, if you refrain from supporting Israel, will be so much worse. Just like Chamberlain, just like Churchill, just like Sudetenland of 1938. We are not going to be Sudetenland of 1938. Now, it's not just Bibi Netanyahu. It's also Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz and every Israeli important official, foreign minister and prime minister and president. The amount of links that were made to the Sudetenland and Czechoslovakia are so many. It might be a theory of mine, but if I'm wrong, then so is Bibi, then so is Yair Lapid, so is Naftali Bennett, so is Benny Gantz, so is Gabi Eisenkot, so is Ashkenazi. Like every single official in Israel agree with this analogy that Israel is relevant, and you guys have to support Israel because it makes quiet things by you. Now, let me tell you the future. How do you analyze the future? There are two questions in intelligence. One is it's called one is a question. Questions have an answer. One is a mystery. Mysteries have no answer. If I want to bomb Assad's chemical weapons, for example, I have to ask myself the question, where is it? And the mystery, how is he going to react if I bomb it? Meaning the question has an answer. It's a physical place. He's hiding his bombs in this place. I might have to work hard to get that intelligence, but it's a physical place. The second thing is, which I have taken into account also, is how is he going to react if I bomb it? That's also, I can't just bomb it and say, okay, what if he's going to wage a full-scale war? Maybe I don't want to bomb it. maybe that's not a good idea. So so how do you analyze those things that don't have an answer, those mysteries? The answer is very simple. You eliminate different possibilities, eliminate until I don't know until you're left with three possibilities. For example, I don't know any of you listeners. I don't know Joey. I don't know you, Joey, but I can assume you're not going to have 36 kids. I'm assuming you're not going to have 75 children. I'm assuming you're not going to have 1,285 kids either. I'm assuming you're not going to only have one. I'm left with like 2, 3, or 4. Okay, or in Scotland, it might be 1 or 2, and in, I don't know, Beitar Elite, a ultra-Orthodox town, it might be 5 or 6 in average. But I can build enough parking lots or kindergartens, assuming I'm going to have 5 or 6 families in a ultra-Orthodox Haredi town in Israel or in Brooklyn, and 1 or 2 parking spots per family in London or in, I don't know, Greece. I mean, I don't know the future, but I can assume that's not possible. That's probable. That's not probable. If I'm going to bomb Assad's weapons, what will he do? Will he launch a full-scale war? Probably not. Will he run naked through the streets in Damascus? Probably not. What will he probably do? I'm left with he might shoot a anti-tank rocket or missile at an Israeli jeep on the border. He might shoot a anti-tank missile, a missile at Haifa, and he might try to down one of our airplanes. Those are 3 realities which I can prepare for, and I can say, okay, so I'll do this and I'll do that, and I'll do this and I'll do that, and I can be prepared for one of those 3 possibilities. So what do I think is the future in Europe? There are a lot of Muslims in Europe, and again, I don't need all the Muslims, God forbid. 99% of them are great truck drivers and doctors and lawyers, and they're great people. It's not the majority. It's not the 99.999% that are peaceful that form reality. I didn't need all Muslims in America to do 9/11. I needed like 15 guys or 19 guys. That's all I needed. So will I have these Muslims once in a while? They're going to be violent? The answer is yes. I don't think all Muslims are going to, and definitely not the radical ones, are going to come and sing Kumbaya and change their name from, I don't know, Muhammad to Johann tomorrow in Germany and be okay. I think there's still going to be here and there attacks in Western soil, in Western Europe, and in the United States. There's going to be 9/11 here, and a San Bernardino there, and a Berlin market here, and a teacher, Pierre, being beheaded by his Chechen student in some street in London. It's going to happen. It's going to be sporadic. There's going to be a Bataclan once every few years, and where a bunch of ISIS lovers, Muslims, go and gun 150 people down in a movie theater in Bataclan. It's going to happen. What is happening as a result of that? That the European right is rising. The AWD party in Germany, and Maria Le Pen in France, and Meloni in Italy, and Vox in Spain, they're growing. They're growing exponentially. They're growing much, much, much stronger. With every election you look, they're getting like tripling their now, what's causing them triple their not the fact that people are all a bunch of anti-Semites and neo-Nazis. It's the fear from Muslims. The fear, because they don't know. Again, you don't know when your truck driver, who is a Muslim guy and he's totally okay and he's a really nice guy, you don't know when he's going to pull the wheel and run over a promenade full of people like in Nice and killing 87 guys. You don't know. And that makes you neurotic, and people are moving more to the right. The European right, they are not a bunch of evangelicals like in some random place in upstate New York or in the middle of America saying, oh, we love Israel, we love Israel. No, it's a bunch of neo-Nazis. It's a Johann, it's a Stefan, it's a Pierre, it's a lot of guys that are neo-Nazis. But and that's scary. That's what's rising. The number of anti-Semitic cases in Europe is rising, and not only carried out by the Muslims, not only. These guys are rising exponentially. And here's what happens. What can I do? What is our role? What can we be active? And why are we more important than guys on the IDF? The answer is we can influence the world opinion and the public opinion. The European left was holding Israel's hands. And the European right could hold Israel's hands. They could tie our hands and say, oh, we can deal with our Muslims. You can't deal with your Muslims. We can affect them. We can come and say, Johann and Stefan and Jorgen, I don't know what, you don't like Israel, your voters don't like Israel, it's okay, you're an anti-Semite, I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to change that. But what I can say, do you love your children and your wife and the future of your kids and your parents in Heidelberg and in Malmo and in Munich and in Leeds, do you like them? Yes. You want them not to be attacked and here and there, and living in fear? yes, you better support Israel. You better stand up to that bully on the block, where he's small still, and tell him, we support Israel because we are way stronger. And we want to show you, the Western world, that you should not deal with us, that we are not going to let you be that way. And if you take somebody who is, if again, Israel is Mike Tyson, and you have an infant called Hamas poking his eyes and slapping him, he's doing it only because Israel has its hands tied. He would not. Would you poke Mike Tyson if you sat on the train bench with him? Would you poke him if you knew his hands weren't tied? No, because you knew he would crush you within 0.2 seconds. Hamas is only allowing themselves to shoot rockets at Israel or Hezbollah or different sporadic attacks because they know Israel's hands are tied. You are the front-line soldiers in influencing this. The Israeli-Hamas conflict or Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not in the IDF or in Jenin or in Shechem or in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. It's in the public minds of people in Western Europe. They are the ones holding Israel's hands down in the public minds of people in America. You can go and call up your public official or your donor for your campus and saying, no, this is not okay. I am appeasing a bully on the block. And last time we appeased the bully on the block, we saw what the outcome was. I'm not going to be part of this. So, Mr. Official, I will hold you accountable. You better support Israel. And if you don't, openly, you will not have my vote next time. A public official really cares about that. And definitely in Western Europe, if I can come and influence people, if I can take all these clips like Al Islam of Tzvi Chizkeli, where he interviews random Muslims living in Paris, and they say, oh yeah, we're going to, as soon as we're big and strong enough, we're going to slaughter Westerners, and we're going to make their lives miserable. And it's enough that you come and you make subtitles in German and in French. Make little clips of like 1 minute for Instagram, or make, 5-minute clips for YouTube. And make subtitles in French and in in English for the Arab, dialogues, and make them in languages that people can understand and influence the minds. And those people, in a number of years from now, or in this campaign even, will say Israel has the right to defend themselves, and they're not gonna force them to practice restraint. Right now, the whole world is forcing Israel to practice restraint. They're zip tying our hands. So even if you have Israel, which has a ton of firepower and an air force and artillery and tanks and soldiers and snipers and you name it, that's not what's needed. We have, even with 10% of what we have, the soldiers have motivation that is insane. I'm called up for reserve duty now, same as all my friends. I have a uniform here in my bag. I put on a jacket for this podcast, and I'm going back to the army base right now. But what's important is not the people in the army as much as you are important. You who live in London, you who live in Berlin, you who live in Nashville, Tennessee, LA, Boston, or Miami, or Boca. You are more important than the guy in the IDF. Now, I realize you really want to fight for Israel, and you really feel this. I'm just trying to articulate it in words. You are more relevant for Israel right now. Israel needs you more than they need those soldiers in the IDF. So what we need you is to be active about it, and not to come and say, okay, we're going to, it's interesting. I want you to get up there, dedicate, 1 hour a week. Get up and put subtitles if you know how to do it. Mail email lists to different political officials, to different donors to different universities in Heidelberg and in Berlin, and influence them and say, listen, wake up, look at what's happening. We're in 1938 right now. You guys can either support the right sides, choose disgrace or war. You better choose war, because if you choose disgrace, you're going to get a much harder war with many more people potentially getting hurt. And by the way, insurgency of random Muslims are much scarier. Israel in the 6-day war took Gaza in 6 days? Oh, and by the way, all the West Bank, Golan, and the entire Sinai, which is triple the size of Israel. Fighting an actual war against tanks, bombs, and airplanes is much easier than fighting an insurgency. When a guy is okay, his name is Muhammad, and his name is Ismail, and his name is Hafez, he's okay and he's a doctor in London. He's okay until the moment he pulls the wheel and runs it into a bunch of people. That's much scarier. It's much harder to deal with and makes your life much more in fear than if your army in France had to fight the Libyan army. They would crush them in a week. But if an insurgency happens by their own local Muslims, it is way scarier. Now, many people say, oh, so what do you want? The Arabs to just live in fear? The answer is no. I don't want the Arabs to live in fear. If you see on the table, a sack of diamonds, which is not labeled, and it's $1 billion right here. Nobody will see you. No cameras, no anything. Something awakens in you and saying, "Ooh, maybe I'll steal those bunch of diamonds." That awakens in you only because that sack of diamonds was on the table in a place where you know has no cameras. If that wouldn't be there, you wouldn't, that need to steal or that thought about maybe touching something that's not yours, that wouldn't even arise if what? If that sack of diamonds was not on the table. Arabs were okay after a 6-day war because they knew nobody was holding Israel's hands down. Israel went in and all the Arabs were like, please come, please buy my shop. Arabs walked around in Gaza without guns, without a gun, in the middle of Shechem, in the middle of Gaza, in the middle of Jenin, and all the Arab vendors, come buy falafel by my shop, come buy couches by my shop. They want you to. The only reason that the want for violence awakens is because they see that Israel's hands are tied. If Israel's hands were not tied, that's like me not having that sack of diamonds on the table. It wouldn't even awaken in me. I wouldn't even want it. If a bad guy has something, a gun laying on the thing, he'll think of some, I don't know, gangster in Chicago, he'll think about taking a gun, and maybe doing something bad with it. But if you want to even have a gun there, that need won't even awaken. If Israel is strong enough, that need doesn't even awaken. And you know what? Then later Israel can think about different agreements with Palestinians, if we want to stay in the West Bank or leave in the West Bank. That's like arguing the third story of a building, when what you want to do is build the foundations. We want our hands not to be tied. And once our hands are not tied, Hamas won't be violent. The Palestinians in the West Bank will not be violent. The Arab Israelis will not be violent. And when they're not violent, and I'm not afraid of going jogging in the park, then I can decide if I want to go jogging in this route or that route. Do I want to annex the West Bank? Do I want to get out of the West Bank? Do I want to annex certain parts of the West Bank? That is all arguments of like the third flight in a building. We didn't even build the foundations. In order to build the foundations, we need not to be afraid. In order to not be afraid, we need you. And I'm not using the word need lightly. We need. We need you. We need you in Florida, and we need you in New Jersey, and we need you in Boston, and we need you in London, and we need you in Rome, and we need you in Berlin. We need you to be active. We in Israel are fighting your war for you. And if you don't support Israel, I don't even want to think of the horrific implications in the next few years. Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people are strong. We will fight with everything we have. We buried our children in the soil. We will fight with whatever we have. We have the motivation. We have the firepower. We will give it all we got. What you might do is determine whether this will be a successful campaign that will reach their goals or not. What will affect if we're going to go to military operation in Gaza and do this and that, we'll do it anyway. What will determine whether that campaign will be as successful or not, that's up to you. And I really hope that you listen, and I really hope that you share this, and I really hope that you like this, and I really hope that you do something about it, that you share it with all your friends, and you say, okay, I have a mission now, and in order for Israel to be successful, right now they need me. So I'm going to dedicate some time, and I'm going to do something about it. So again, my name is Eytan Rund. I'm very easy to find on social media. You can ask me questions if you want to, and I hope that you guys listen to it, and this opens a different perspective at the reality, and that we do something about it. And Am Yisrael Chai, we've gone through horrific things in the past. We've always gone through. But what you guys can determine is how costly this next few months or year are going to be. And we need you guys, so thank you so much for listening. And again, if you agree, so please share, and thank you very much. God willing, God bless, we'll have a good time, and this will be, next time we meet, next time we chat, next time we talk, it should be in happiness. So thank you very, very much.